We had lunch one time in his trailer, he and I, and he ate an entire 9-inch boysenberry pie with a fork. No plates, no knives.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to a brand new episode of Collider Ladies Night. Today, I have the pleasure of welcoming Oscar, Golden Globe, Emmy, and 5-time Grammy nominated comedian and actress, Margaret Cho, to the show. Margaret, how are you doing?
I'm great, thank you.
I am so happy to have you here. What we're doing is we're paving the way to Hysterical, brand new documentary that you can catch streaming now exclusively on FX on Hulu. But I warned Margaret at the beginning. We start at the beginning on Ladies Night. So my very first question for you is, when you first initially pictured yourself making it in the entertainment industry, what did the dream look like to you way back then? And how does that compare to maybe what you consider making it now?
I don't even know what I pictured making it as. Like, I never really had a clear vision just because I never saw other Asian American women doing comedy or even sort of a path to follow. I just really loved the art form of stand-up comedy, and I just wanted to do it. So I didn't necessarily have an idea of like, oh, this will mean I made it. And I've never actually even thought, oh, now I've made it. There's never a sense of that.
With that in mind, then, what would you say was step one to thinking that you were pursuing a path to kind of, I guess, getting a sense of stability in the industry and confidence? And I know confidence is always hard to come by, but at what point were you like, I'm here and I'm doing it?
I think really when I first started doing television, which was probably 1988 or 89, something around there, I was doing television comedy where you would do these 5-minute sets, whether it was Evening at the Improv or MTV's Half Hour Comedy Hour. That was a really big deal. So those are the things that I think made me feel like, oh, this is the thing that I'm doing, that I'm actually on my way.
When you were first starting out back then, did you ever find anybody pushing you in a particular direction? Like, if you wanted to be a stand-up comic, was there anybody in your corner saying you got to focus on that and that alone and not necessarily acting gigs?
No, because I never really had any sort of like thought about acting, or there was never any parts that I could really audition for. There were no Asian American parts. There was no Asian American characters on TV shows. Very rarely would you see Asian Americans do anything in films or television. So I didn't necessarily have any idea that I could be an actor. It didn't come till much later when I was doing television as a comedian that I thought, oh, maybe I could have a show written about me, which I ended up doing in 1994 with a sitcom called All American Girl. But I didn't have aspersions or aspirations to do acting, nor were there any kinds of people trying to help me figure out what to do or where to go, because it had never been seen before.
So if you had no help back then, I guess I would want to know what kind of advice you would give to some up and coming actors right now, and especially thinking about All American Girl. I've heard a lot of your stories from that, and it's just absolutely crushing to hear, to say the least. So having gone through something like that yourself, what would you tell to somebody out there who is maybe, brand new to the industry, very young, who runs into a situation like that and might be afraid to deal with it, might be afraid to raise that red flag when they notice something isn't quite right about this situation?
I think the best advice that you could have is really to have faith in your own ability as an artist, and to really kind of try to figure out how to understand what you like about what you do or what you want to do. My problems really kind of stem from not knowing how to go about what I was doing and not really trusting in my own point of view as being valid. So trust your own intentions, trust your own points of view. That's going to carry you as far as you need to go.
I do want to backtrack a little, because I really like talking about studying art in school, and I was reading that you auditioned for the San Francisco School of the Arts. So I was wondering what compelled you to audition for that program, and then in the end, what did you wind up getting from maybe a more formal place to train that you might not have gotten otherwise?
Well, I got a lot out of going to School of the Arts. I got my first comedy partner. I actually started off as a duo. So my comedy partner was Sam Rockwell. And there's video of us doing our sketches on YouTube. Aisha Tyler was actually in our class as well. And so she hosted a documentary that was really all about our school. And it shows us doing comedy as really young people. And so it gave me an environment to be around artists, which I think is the most important part of going to any kind of school where arts are focused like that. You have an environment of artists for people that want to do the same thing, and that's the most motivating thing.
What's a quality in a partner for a duo like that that you really appreciated, that maybe someone like Sam gave you, that you wish you saw in more stand-up comics out there?
I think that Sam was really an exceptional artist because he's not only funny, he's also really, of course, everybody knows, an incredible actor. And there's a depth of vulnerability that comedians can get to that makes them very powerful. So I think it was tapping into Sam's acting ability and also utilizing that. So he was a perfect partner for me.
When you first jumped into acting, is there any part of the production process that was that just totally surprised you? Maybe even something, seemingly silly that many first starting out would be afraid to ask about, that when you got on set, you realize, like, I can't believe that's how that thing works.
I think that it's really important to just be really prepared with what you're doing as an actor before you go in, because that'll give you the most ammunition to sort of deal with the war that is actually like kind of happening on set, because you're dealing with the time constraints, you're dealing with possibly sunlight or weather or the mood of the stars, the mood of the other actors, the level of their preparation, the level of their skill, the environment of the set in general. So you have to kind of be so prepared for all of the things that make filmmaking so intense, and everybody is devoted to this one thing, which is getting the shot. And it can be very exciting. It can be really scary. So I think I wasn't prepared to how much of a group effort filmmaking was, or television making was, that it's really something that requires the ultimate effort of so many people that it's pretty mind-blowing if you think about that.
With that in mind, if you had to name an unsung hero of a film crew, someone who makes all the difference in your day on set but doesn't get the credit that they deserve for it, what position of the crew would it be?
The position of the crew that I think is actually most essential is script supervisor, because they're there to really work on continuity and keep the story through line happening through each setup and each set. So a scene can be broken down into multiple sections, and the script supervisor is the one that's going to make sure that you have continuity, that you look the same when you're switching shots and switching perspective, because something can be done in the morning and then something can be done in the evening, and you're in the same moment, but it's not clear to the audience that you have to be prepared. The script supervisor is really the most important part of keeping that continuity, keeping that reality of the film or television show or story you're in, for not only the actors, but for the crew entirely.
I feel like I'm always the one looking out for, where the drink level is and watching it go up and down throughout a scene. So I always appreciate that kind of attention to detail.
Right. I mean, if you're like in the world of the Game of Thrones, you got to know that there's not going to be a Starbucks there.
It's a very important detail, although I quite enjoyed the aftermath of all that.
It's really funny.
All right, let's get into some specific titles. I have to ask you about Face Off. I guess first, how exactly did you wind up getting cast in that movie?
I got cast in the film Face Off because of John Woo, who is a hero of mine, and he directed that. It was his second American feature after Broken Arrow. And he was so incredible. And I had been friends with Chow Yun-fat, who is the star of many of his Hong Kong films and an iconic Chinese actor. And So them, along with Michelle Yeoh and I, were in San Francisco together doing a big event for Asian actors, Asian storytelling. This is in the 90s. And so I was really lucky to get to be involved in Face Off, and what a big production. I know that the film actually, it takes place over a week, but it took us almost a year to shoot. It was many stunts. They actually explode a plane, and they really did. This is like 90s action filmmaking where they could actually explode a plane without CGI. This is before so many of these things were created with CGI. We had none of that. We only had planes and explosives. And, there was a lot of going to training camps where you would learn how to properly shoot a gun, properly look like you were in the FBI. And John Woo had a lot of input on making sure that actors were comfortable with how they were physically portraying these characters. You also had a stunt double that was pretty much the physical perfection version of yourself, which is really strange. So I had a stunt double, and I think John Travolta had like 5 or 6 of them, as did Nicolas Cage. But we all had either one or more people who were our stunt doubles, who were doing the stunts and were just ourselves, but perfect versions, which is really funny.
All those resources pay off big time. I feel like you
Yes.
don't get that kind of classic 90s action style as much as I am wowed by VFX artists. It's not quite the same. It's not that reach out and touch it kind of feel.
Well, there's it's a really interesting way of making movies where everything is so real and so true. And when there's explosives, there's explosions. I mean, that's just a very interesting thing that I had not really seen or been a part of. So I was excited to be there.
How about working with John Travolta in particular? Were there any expectations going into working with him, and did he surprise you in any way?
Well, John Travolta is just like a modern day king in that there's not really American monarchy, but there is in Hollywood, if you think about it. And he's sort of in the last era of the golden age of Hollywood. He's sort of the last movie star in a lot of ways. And so he had this sort of like court around him of different people that he had worked with, his particular crew, whether they were his stand-ins or his stunt doubles, or his crew that he would bring from movie to movie. So you would see like sort of the skeletal like remnants of different films he had done over the years. And so that was really interesting. He was a really jovial guy, really fun. We had lunch one time in his trailer, he and I, and he ate an entire 9-inch boysenberry pie with a fork. No plates, no knives.
I feel like maybe I shouldn't be impressed, but I am.
It was after a beef Wellington also. Lots of pastry.
I am the king.
Sticking with, I guess, the big action blockbusters, how did your experience working on a film like Bright compared to Face Off? Because Bright did have a lot of, prosthetics and things like that, but it's a much heavier, it's a different kind of action film. It's a more modern action film that I'm assuming has a more CG and effects than something like Face Off did.
Yes, Bright had a lot of effects and a lot of creatures. It was a real weird thing because Bright was actually like a combination of like a sci-fi fantasy film and kind of a hard-hitting crime drama about Los Angeles. So you had a lot of elements that were really interesting. And then all of the, I guess they were sort of the orcs in Bright, had some CGI added later. So you had the base costume, which they really look like gorgonzola. They really look just like blue cheese. And then when they were, after they added the CGI, they look really different. It really kind of formed my opinion of Joel Edgerton, because I can't see him as anything but an orc, because I never saw him in it as anything but an orc. He was orc the entire time. I never saw him out of makeup. So I think that Joel Edgerton is actually an orc. It's hard for me to think of him in his real self.
He carried himself so incredibly well in that character. So I feel like you only picturing him as an orc right now from that movie is totally fine.
Yeah, he's so orc. He's so, and I remember that whole experience. And Will Smith and I were getting our makeup done when Hillary Clinton was giving her concession speech. And we were just like, we were so upset. It was a very intensely traumatic time because when Hillary Clinton had lost the election, and it was like, how are we going to do this with Donald Trump, and how did this happen? So that was also culturally what was going on in the air around that film.
Never forget where I was when that happened.
Yeah.
With Bright, I guess I'll pose the same question to you about Will that I did John, because I guess I would probably also include Will Smith in that kind of last generation of epic movie stars. So what was it like working with him, and did he surprise you in any way?
Will Smith is exactly how you think he's going to be. He's fun, he's friendly, he's sweet, he's hilarious. He's like really easy to get along with on set. He just kind of really sort of democratizes the process of movie making. There's no hierarchy with Will Smith. Everybody's an equal part of the system. I think he even had a BlackBerry sidekick, which that's kind of weird.
I kind of love knowing that about him now.
It was weird, yeah.
I also really like what you bring up about him democratizing the environment on set. So of all of the films and TV shows that you've worked on, is there any other person who was, number one on the call sheet and had that kind of influence over the whole company and used that power in a really positive way that you hope to see more out there?
I think that I definitely felt that about Will Smith, and I definitely felt that about John Travolta. There was I wonder, like there's lots of other people, like Tina Fey, who I worked with a few times on different projects, but most importantly for me on 30 Rock. So on 30 Rock, everybody was so famous that on a lot of the shots that you were in, you were actually working with their double. So like if you're in a scene with like Tracy Morgan, I only saw Tracy Morgan like for 5 or 7 minutes when he was doing his coverage, and then you would only work with the double for the rest of it because we were shooting your stuff. So but with Tina was there from when you got in to when you wrapped, because she had written it and she wanted you to do it exactly as she had envisioned it, and she wanted to be there for you. So she was just like off camera right there, so supportive, just incredibly invested and emotionally invested. I mean, something that you never see, but she really is so responsible for that show's success, but at the same time, very grounded about the entire experience. So she's like probably the most engaged person that I've ever worked with.
I love hearing that about people that I admire.
Yeah.
And bringing up 30 Rock, I do have to ask about getting nominated for an Emmy, because I'm always just curious to hear about actors, experience after getting nominated for these big awards. Did that nomination kind of change the conversation about your involvement in film and television at all? Or was there anything about the whole Emmy nomination process and what has to go down to lead up to the ceremony that might have caught you off guard?
I don't think any of it is like, to me, anything that would have caught me off guard. I was just really excited to be nominated. I'm excited to experience that. It's really fun to be nominated for things. It's really exciting, and I like award shows. I like attending. To me, it's really exciting too. So I think it really helps sort of legitimize my position as an actor, as like there's so much of like comedians who are actors, yet it's something that they don't always like transform. And so I was able to fully transform into somebody else, which for me is very satisfying as an actor, but also that's what you want to be able to do, is sort of disappear into the reality of somebody else. So I enjoyed it.
And now you're also part of the voice cast of an Oscar nominated movie, and Over the Moon is just so beautiful and wonderful. What a unique animated movie that I feel like I need to see more of. You've done a ton of voice acting gigs before. I feel like it's mostly in television. So was there anything about the Over the Moon voice recording process that was unique to that production?
Well, I love being in Over the Moon, and I was a part of the production from a brain trust that I had gone to with Daniel Day Kim in 2018 in Shanghai with Pearl Animation Studios, who produced the film. And so I was able to see the initial drawings, the initial designs. I was able to go to Guo Pei's studio. She had created the costumes for the moon goddess Chang'e. So it's really impressive to be able to sort of see all of the backstory behind what goes into a huge animated film like that. And I really loved being a part of it. It's a very different process when you're doing an animated film as opposed to doing animation on TV. It's still really fun, but it's at the same time, it's a lot more of a character investment, a lot more involvement. And so I was really excited about that.
I am rooting for that movie big time right now. I'm very excited about it. So reality TV now. I got to get into some of that because, you know, Masked Singer has a ton of fans out there. Way back when the show was first pitched to you, what was your reaction to it? Because whenever you remake something, I feel like there's always apprehension. Like, are you just remaking it to remake it, or is it going to be as good? So was there any of that apprehension, or were you just like, sign me right up?
Oh, I really wanted to do it because I was watching the clips of the show. It's a very, very popular show in Korea and also Thailand. And it was just so majestic, the way that they presented the costumes. It was really like this exciting experience. And to me, it was just so much fun. I really love singing. And I think it's so interesting to try to remove context from a singer and context from any sort of public personality. And so that to me was really a thrilling sort of prospect, whether you're like creating the costumes or creating the song experience. It was really fun.
This just randomly popped into my mind as you were explaining that. Do you think there's any value in maybe putting a spin on that show and kind of removing who the person is from stand-up comedy and almost doing it that way?
I wonder. I think that stand-up comedy is so much about identity.
Yeah.
So it would be hard to remove the identity from the comedian. Not in the same way that song is, because the song has a little bit more opacity, where you can actually apply to somebody who is unrelated to the song and still have it work. So it's hard to say if comedy is the same type of experience.
I wonder if it would be a unique challenge, but in all the stand-up I've seen, it's personality that shines through and makes it special. So I don't want to see that go away, but it kind of sounds like a fun game show idea now to me.
It would be. That'd be interesting.
I've read a good deal about the intense secrecy that goes into being on that show. So what would you say is the craziest or most outlandish thing you did to keep your identity a secret while you were on it?
I don't think that I had to undergo that much secrecy because the show hadn't been on the air yet. So I was in the first season. So people didn't really know what was happening. Now I think that would be very, very challenging to figure out how to keep the show contestants secret, how to keep identities secret. But a lot of it has to do with kind of like scheduling people, scheduling different places. You know, there's so much that goes into keeping it under wraps. So I think it would be a lot harder now.
I don't envy those contestants in that respect. Oh, I could also ask you about Dancing with the Stars. How did that experience compare to Masked Singer? I guess maybe which one had you caught up in the competition element of it more?
I don't know if the Masked Singer really is about a competition as it is just about having a good time to me. The experience of Dancing with the Stars is very physically intense. And so you're engaging in dancing like 6 hours a day. And then the rest of the time you're kind of icing your joints and trying to you kind of build a real rapport with your dance partner. And there's so much that goes into partner dancing that is foreign to me, as you know, I've only had a partner once with Sam Rockwell. So it was kind of like a weird thing to kind of coexist with another performer in that space. But I had a really great time. I think it's physically much more difficult to dance than sing always, but it was fun.
You said you liked singing when you were talking about Masked Singer. Are you a dancer too, or was picking up all that technique especially challenging? Because the show makes me, as a non-dancer, that show makes me anxious because I know as hard as I would try, I just wouldn't be able to do it.
Well, I am a dancer, but not a ballroom dancer. That's very specific and that's very athletic. And it's something that I really had to get a sort of a very fast education is. I mean, I was a ballet dancer when I was younger. I danced belly dance. I danced belly dance for a long time all over the world. But going into it as a ballroom dancer, that's a whole different kind of sport. You know, it's really athletic. It's very, very tough. And I really had a great partner. So that was good.
I feel like you've done a little of everything. Is there anything entertainment wise that you've yet to try that you're dying to?
I think that entertainment wise, I don't know. I mean, I think there's like a lot of things that, you know, I get really excited about. I like TikTok. I like to watch the dances on TikTok, and I like a dance challenge, but I could never figure out. Like, I tried to do the WAP challenge on TikTok and I almost broke my back. I'm like trying to do the body challenge. I try to do all the Megan Thee Stallion challenges and I always fail miserably. So maybe someday.
Yeah, at least you're trying though. I'm not even trying. Yeah. I feel like you get credit for that.
It's hard.
How about sticking with game shows? If you could cast yourself on any game show out there and go in with the confidence that you're going to win it, which game show would you pick?
Gosh, I would love to do Jeopardy, but Jeopardy's hard. You know, Jeopardy is really for smart people. I feel like, gosh, that would be a great thing to try, but I don't know. I think that it's really an important show. I'd also like to do like an animal show.
Oh my God. I wasn't prepared for a cat. I knew you had a dog.
I have a dog. She's over there. This is Sacre-Cœur. She hates being held, but I love kissing her. Oh, she smells like mushrooms.
I would show you Deputy Dewey, but he's all curled up in his bed right now and he'd be really pissed if I woke him up.
Oh no.
Yeah, we've been there before. It's no good. All right.
That's funny.
Hysterical now. When you were first approached to be a part of the documentary, what was it about Andrea that made you think she is the right person to direct this documentary?
Well, I just really loved the concept and I love the idea. And I think that women really need to have more of a presence in comedy, more of a voice in comedy. We are kind of a silent minority in comedy, but the best comedians are always women. So I thought, what a great project.
With that in mind, if you could go back to like super young you who had, you know, dreams to go on and do all of these things, what would young you say about where you are and what you're doing right now that would maybe make her go, huh, like I never realized that would be possible?
I would so be, I guess, excited by the fact that I'm such a kind of happy, peaceful person and that nothing really ruffles me. And I think that when I was younger, I was just so worried about everything all the time. And now I feel really like, oh, it all worked out. So it's good.
I like that. Even though you're such a big part of the comedy world, is there anything new that even you learned while participating in the making of Hysterical and maybe watching it after the fact that just kind of wowed you about the community?
I just think what's so incredible is all of us, all the women who are involved in the film and in comedy really have the same experience, how common it is, and also how little time we really get to spend together. So a film like this is really important so that even if we can't hang out, we get to see each other in the movie.
With that in mind, let's go do a top three right now. If you had to name 3 up and coming comics that we all have to keep an eye out for, names we don't know yet, who would you recommend?
I love Robin Tran. She's a really, really funny trans woman comedian who is really just hilarious. I love Atsuko Okatsuka. She's very, very funny, like really weird, a really surreal, but also a killer dancer and really fun. And Jenny Yang, who really makes me laugh. So there's just 3 Asian American female comedians that I admire so much.
I'm so excited to go look them up after this. I have to let you go in 5 minutes. So we have to go into ladies' night random questions, just some random questions that come to my mind. Let's go with, I actually think I know you have an answer to this one. What new hobbies have you picked up during lockdown?
What new hobbies? Well, I've been making a lot of Thai food. I've been kind of keeping a lot of animals around here. I've been reading, I've been podcasting. I've been grateful that we have sort of an online community. I've been working for the Biden-Harris campaign. I've been very active with lots of things where I can be. So life it's pretty good. It's pretty active, which is good.
That was a great list of stuff. I have to revisit some of it now because I was going to lean into the podcast of it all. I was listening a bit to prepare for this interview, and I can't recommend it enough. So what compelled you to jump into that? And also, can you talk a little bit about the pivot for season 2?
Well, season 2 is really important. It's called Mortal Minority, and it's all about the historical context of Asian Americans and hate crimes, and where historical meshes with modern day. And so there's like a lot of material there, and also going over it with Asian American comedians, I think is really vital. So the first episode, we go through the 1871 Chinatown massacre that happened in Los Angeles, along with Helen Hong. We also get into the Atlanta shooting, which happened on March 16th of this last year. So this is like this is a very timely subject, but it's also historical. So I'm really grateful to be able to do it.
That first episode of the second season is excellent. So I highly recommend it to anybody out there looking for something to listen to right now. Going back to the animals thing. So are there more animals there than just the 2 that we've met?
There's 3. There's Sacre-Cœur Saudade that you met, and her name means Sacred Heart of Unnameable Longing in French and Portuguese. And the other one is Sarang John Child. She's also a Sphinx cat. Sacre-Cœur is deaf, so Sarang John Child is Sacre-Cœur's assistant. Oh. And there's Lucia Caterina, who's the Chihuahua to my right.
we have one deaf dachshund in this house and one blind dachshund in this house. So the 2 of them are a little tag team, and they operate together, and it's kind of sweet.
They work it out. It's great.
If you could only have one meal over and over and over for the rest of your life, what are you picking and why?
If I could only have one meal for the rest of my life, I would probably have toso bibimbap, which is mixed rice and vegetables in a hot stone pot. So I've been making that, actually. It's a Korean dish, and I've been making it through the quarantine. I actually have a lot of stone pots, but I'm not brave enough to get them as hot as they do at the restaurant. So they don't get as hot as I'd like, but I'm getting there.
It's understandable. You're talking to a non-cook, so I'm impressed you're making anything at all.
Yes.
So we always do the same last 2 questions on Ladies Night. First one is, can you name someone who is changing the entertainment industry for the better in any sector you want?
I would say it's Megan Thee Stallion. I think Megan Thee Stallion is giving women so much agency, power, humor, beats, dance moves, catchphrases. She's the best.
I love it. And this last one, you could take it in a deeper direction. You could keep it light if you want. But this is our last question always is, what is the biggest fear that you've ever had that you've actually managed to overcome?
Snakes. I was really scared of snakes. But I have 15 snakes tattooed on my body. And I went to a herpetology convention where I was confronted with hundreds of thousands of snakes, all in like plastic takeout boxes. So I was able to conquer my fear. I don't know what I was afraid of, but they're beautiful creatures.
You actually might be the first person who's come close to helping me with why that question ever came to be to begin with. I feel like the whole time I was just searching for answers for a cure for my fear of bees. Maybe I need to find a bee convention.
Bees are scary though. There's actually a bee infestation in my yard right now. And when I wake up in the morning, there's hundreds of thousands of bees outside that the house sounds like it's buzzing.
I don't know if I would ever sleep. I don't mean to make
Scary.
it worse for you, but I would have a
No,
very
it's scary. It's weird.
Well, hopefully the fact that you have so much to celebrate right now is a good distraction. Margaret, thank you so much for hanging out on Ladies Night. I really appreciate your time today.
Thank you.
And to everybody out there, do go check out the documentary Hysterical. It is excellent, and you can get it exclusively on FX, on Hulu. Check it out. We'll see you soon with more Ladies Night.